A chair is meant to be sit on. You sat on it.
Well, that's a concept of an idea of a chair right there for you. Jake, you're a very brave man.
You know, I think they play Overwatch better than they read flat pack instruction manuals. So hopefully for the match, they can put out a better performance. But you know what? I sat on it. It worked.
It worked.
I kind of think that kind of like mirror their play style. They didn't read instructions. They got to work. They took initiative. And somehow it ended up working.
I loved the initial approach there, Clear coming in with the mise en place, right? Sorting the screws, that it all figured out. Half a minute later, he's throwing. He's literally throwing. That's the mental fortitude you were talking about.
Was that mental fortitude to throw the chair?
No, it's the opposite. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's not boding well for this team. Let's take a look at our talent predictions to see who had faith. I'm going to go with SSG here. This is their meta. This is their time to shine. They're confident. They're unfazed. They're moisturized. They're in their lane. They got this.
It looks like production disagrees here, but they put you on Nightmare.
That's not what I said. That's still not what I said.
But I
keep on trying.
I'll take this, Fred. I actually went with Nightmare. You know, there's been a team that I've had supporting all year. Swap. It's okay, whatever.
Smiley face.
You know, but they're a team that I think their friendship has shined through, right? It's like the trust they have in each other, the fun, the passion they have for the game, the motivation. You know, every time I talk to players like Zera, you know, they really have a lot of motivation to prove that NA still wants it, NA's still motivated. They are going to face an incredibly tough test, which is an SSG in a rush meta. I think probably, you know, the facts of the situation are against them, but the vibes from Johnny, the vibes are all Nightmare.
You mean because you're American, you like the American vibes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't. What did I go with, production? What did I go with?
Let's find out.
Ask them, yeah.
I did think I said Space Station, that's right. Because of course.
I don't like this.
Well, you know, if Jake went with it, you know, don't falter.
It's
so
fine.
Feel confident.
No.
Well, okay, never mind. I went with Space Station because they have been the best brawl team for you know, a couple of years now in the Western region, Jake, in the Western region. And I do think that they can come out, you know, looking good in this kind of meta. This should be the kind of meta that SSG really should excel at. Yes, it's not Reinhardt being played specifically. It's not Ramatra being played specifically. But the Mauga is like as close as you can ask for if you are SSG, and all their players, they're so good when it comes to excelling at some of these heroes. I'm looking forward to see if we get to see Backbone in the lineup, because Backbone, if he can come out play the Symmetra, the Reaper, that would really, you know, favor him. We haven't seen that much Symmetra, but we did see in Stage 4, SSG, you know, throw out the Symmetra with the Cardiac Overdrive from the Mauga, right? You know, you're really able to channel up that beam. That's a lot of damage. So SSG, I'm really excited to see what they can do in this meta.
And we haven't seen either team in action for quite some time. Stage 4 feels like an eternity away. What kind of note did both of these teams end up on in Stage 4?
Well, with SSG, right, I mean, we're incredibly strong, look great in that meta. And like you said, you know, I think it really is not about individual heroes. Like, people look at Hadi, they think, oh, Reinhardt, right? But it's more that this team just has great in-fight communication. They're great at adapting to these small moments. You know, one skill comes off and they see the window to push strong as a team, and they have the faith in each other to execute on those small advantages. And I think having seen the first few matches, I think this is a great meta for SSG. I think they probably are the favorite to win this. But Nightmare is that team that I feel like can always make some magic happen, right? Like, it's going to be a tougher test for them. I think the meta is probably against them based on what we've seen so far in the tournament. But maybe they can pull something out of their hat. Maybe, you know, find a way for Seeker or Zero to stick with the heroes that they're most comfortable on. Maybe bringing out something like the hit scan for Seeker. It could be a way to throw a wrench in the works against SSG. But at the same time, like you said, Johnny, right? Like, the ability to play the high pace. Funny Astro, known as a Lucio player, but has looked really great on the Juno as well.
Yeah.
No, you go ahead.
We agree. I wanted to say as well, we should highlight Psycho, I think, because we've seen SSG in the past, you know, they like to play, you know, Sparker a lot. You know, they rely on Sparker's hit scan capabilities. But we've also seen from Psycho, he's had a really good year. He was a Stage 2 MVP. And if you remember that Stage 2 finals between SSG and ENCE, it was actually Psycho who put himself in the driver's seat for SSG and said, hey, coach, sub me in. Like, I want to get in the game. I really do think I can carry this. I think I can have a tremendous amount of impact. And he did so on the Tracer. But if we're going to see more Echo, we've seen Heesang already, for example, pull out the Echo. That is another hero that Psycho can come out on and have tremendous impact on. So SSG, typically we rely on Sparker. Psycho could be another player to watch out for in this team.
Could indeed. I'm very excited for this matchup, and it's about to go down on our very stage. So let's send it over to Golden Boy to meet the teams.
All right, folks, it's a classic NA-EU rivalry, and I'll tell you what right now, I think we might be in a If you're an NA fan, you might be in hostile territory out here because it's going to be all EMEA. Probably because everyone's going to be losing their minds for this team. Welcome to the stage, Spacestation Gaming!
Spacestation Gaming joins the tournament as the best brawl team in the West, and they couldn't have asked for a better meta. Hardy's reputation precedes him as the premier Reinhardt player in the West, but he's as reliable on the Mauga should it be his hero of choice today. Backbone is a player to watch as the master of unique heroes, but it's going to be the Reaper or Symmetra, and given the meta we're presented with, his impact is going to be of utmost importance in today's series.
And their opponents, they can't build a chair to save their life, but they're damn good at Overwatch. Put your hands together for Nightmare!
This team came together over the course of the year, bringing in pieces, bringing in friends from disparate rosters, and finally, they come here to the OWCS World Finals in their strongest form yet, building around Infected in the tank position. This team is gonna have to give everything to shut down SSG.
All right, coaches, fist bump players, take your stations and let's send it back over. These guys doing triple duty. You got Uber and Mr. X on the call. Have fun, fellas.
Someone should tell me to win the first 4 games.
He's going to get tired of saying our names.
He's going to throw it to us over and over again, baby. That's what we like. Heading into this game, this is an interesting one because Nightmare, something that gets like mentioned on the desk, but this is the team that pushed the Toronto Defiant all the way to the edge in that stage 4 in NA. This team looked incredible at the end of regular season play.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of these teams, right? I think Johnny makes a great point, right? SSG, the best in the West, playing the brawl, but I think Nightmare has been on an upward trajectory all year long.
I asked Hardy, I said, what do you think about Nightmare? Because there's like some rumors that they kind of play like you, and he looks at me, he's like, yeah, I think they're fans. I think they're like fans of us. So there's an acknowledgement that these two teams really like to play like a very similar style.
Calling like
around
another
Mauga.
competitive player a fan is probably like, you know, the biggest low blow you could get.
Yeah, I mean, he was pretty laid back about it. You know what Hardy's like. It's Oasis, of course, for the first map in this series. But these are two teams that really pride themselves on their ability to play like a macro game. Hardy's not the only person that thinks that they're pretty similar. But, you know, hearing from him, he feels like they're in a great spot. It is their time. They're like a hive mind, these SSG guys. They're always on the same page.
I mean, it's like the perfect storm for them, right? You know, brawl meta, we're here in EMEA, right? Like, it just feels like one of these teams, you know, whether it's like them or Twisted Minds, has to make a deep run here. And I think the money would be on SSG.
And I asked Infected, I sort of said, like, how do you feel about this kind of meta? Because, you know, you're not so much a Mauga player. He's like, it was a rough start, but I got there. I'm feeling pretty good. So, folks, here we have it. The stage is set. Space Station Gaming versus Nightmare coming at ya. Yeah, so to expand on that, in fact, it was like, I was more of like a Winston Orisa guy. Like, that was my favorites, and it took me a little while to get settled in this metagame. He also talks about that in an interview as well with your boy Xavier, Commander X over on YouTube, so you should go check that out. But yeah, again, these two teams really feel like they'd like to play a similar way here, but it's Seeker, such a dominant hit scan player, now kind of on Reaper duty, whereas Psycho's been heralded as maybe one of the best echoes in the world, but he's saying is also in that discussion, I think.
Yeah, I would say so, as well aware. SSG, no, look, Backbone's a really strong Reaper as well, right? We've seen him historically, like Reaper May, like just fantastic picks for Backbone. As we get things started here, it'll be a TP out of the spawn cycle, we'll make a switch, and we'll actually get, this is actually probably our first like mirror of the weekend thus far.
Now we are mirrored in the Mauga comps, folks, and it's time to get started. The high ground's where the fight's starting. Hardy goes in with a charge here, and he and Infected need to manage those health pools very effectively. Nicely done by Zero, though, able to get the better of Hardy with that focusing beam, but Admiral got whip shot over the edge.
Yeah, and the biggest thing when you get in this Mauga mirror is like that cardiac overdrive, right? It's such an impactful ability from the Mauga that you look and see like, okay, which team is going to be, you know, popping that first, maybe early, disengage, come back with your own, have a big advantage. It'll be Nightmare who takes control of the point first. Great opener for them. CJ, one of the quickest in NA to really get the Juno vibes, really get that hero under his grip. Very, very good on that one. There's that orbital ray already developed here. Astro a little bit behind, so Nightmare might look to try and exacerbate this little ult lead as they push up. It's going to be a great walk away by Backbone, and Hardy's under pressure again. We do have that orbital ray deployed here. Lana goes for the rally as a stopgap, and then Astro sends his ultimate
and Hardy is going careening into Nightmare's lineup.
And Nightmare bails, though. They completely bail. And because they bail, Space Station trying to get some value, right? Trying to follow that up with that orbital rate. And Infected takes out Hardy as he pushes a little bit too deep. But no, Nightmare kicked that off, right? Secret TPs in the back lane, takes a load of damage. Infected goes weak as well. And then that's when CJ uses the orbital rate to kind of help them stabilize.
A little bit too ahead of that orbital rate. Psycho backs up here now. It's Nightmare that want to get aggressive this time around. Duplicate here of the Malga, of course. So Zero making 2 Angry Islanders on the map. Hardy's going to fall here to Zero, who goes in. Seeker with a death blossom, definitely adding his damage to the mix here. And Nightmare have found a good pace already.
Yeah, and typically when you see the dupe of the Malga, right, you expect like that cage fight, potentially double cage fight, right? But right there is really interesting. They actually just went in with a double slam, right? They kind of used the Malga charge and the slam into the Death Blossom, right? Get 2 of those going down. That's a pretty sick combo.
And 2 consecutive stuns virtually. Now here come the cage. Fights that overlap a little bit. It's going to be the torpedoes thrown in from the edges by CJ.
The rally is huge,
yeah,
though.
it's the first to go down. Exactly. Admiral had that, but after the fact, it was Hardy able to channel his chat energy. And Psycho with a second Malga on the field makes it tough to break.
Yeah, you know, the second cardiac overdrive, right, is just massive. And that's able to keep them alive through the rally. Admiral ends up just jumping right into the cage, has that rally, trying to keep everybody topped up. It started off pretty good, but then as soon as that dupe comes in from Psycho, it is all a wrap in favor of SSG.
Infected here. See, adjusting to the Malga at the start of this metagame. Has definitely found his flow in this game. We are going to have a lot of this neutral fight played out here as both Malgas try and mitigate as much damage as possible and peek around these corners. Seeker went pretty deep, and here comes a second wave from Nightmare. CJ's perched comfortably up here on top of the wall. It's going to be landing, going down to the sticky bombs, and Hardy is run down by Zera. Double kill for the Echo here, and Nightmare looking like they might have this first round wrapped up.
And they do a great job of following up Seeker when he uses that TP. They all get right into the mix. CJ with that orbital ray then gets a little bit of high ground, putting down some damage. But it's the kill early on the land in there from Zero, which is huge.
Now it's going to be a rally for Landon now to try and get back into the fight, but Space Station pull up just short. Nightmare in this Malga mirror look really very ready to go. These guys are doing triple blocks, man. They really put the scrim time in, and it shows.
Yeah, and I mean, they've just had incredible progress, I think, like just as individual players, right, throughout the year, right? And just kind of, you know, rising up through NA. It was like, okay, who's going to be, really, we were looking at NA, like, who's going to be the, you know, second best team, right? We had like loads of contenders early on, you know, teams end up falling apart, dropping out. All things kind of come together for Nightmare here towards the end, where they put together a great collection of players. And, you know, like you mentioned, they just have the drive to be great.
Can't ask for a better start than that for Nightmare. Love how they're coming out in waves. First Seeker goes in, then he just Wraith walks out. Then the rest of Nightmare come in with a Malga charge. It's pretty hard to deal with if you're Space Station. But we're definitely reacting, not acting so much. High ground here, as Seeker has to back away. Takes a lot of early damage at Zero. With a couple of those sticky bombs on him, has to respect what Psycho's capable of. But Infected from the high ground wants to pour some pressure in Hardy's direction. He tries to charge away, but Landon's in trouble. Seeker follows up that Malga charge so well.
Yeah, they get a little bit split there as they end up taking the high ground first, SSG. Like you mentioned, they put down a lot of damage, but then it's Nightmare just battling back up, forcing the low ground, rotate out. And you see how aggressive Nightmare gets, right? Infected going in with a charge. Admiral here uses the shield bash to just gain space, just close distance.
10% here for Nightmare after winning that first fight. No huge leads in ult charge just yet. Your Junos are about even in that metric. Here they come though. Nightmare want to come forward with a speed boost. Hardy, a little bit of tech is there up against the wall. Doesn't want to charge on in, and they still have to back up now though. They'll test the waters once more. Keep an eye on Infected's position. He looks to dive, and again they get the brig landed. Can't do much about that.
Infected and Seeker, I mentioned it before, just doing a great job of combinations, right? With that charge and the TP of the Reaper, right? Getting in perfect position to almost like assassinate players there on the spot. And also with this comp, it's quite interesting. There's no, like, typically on this point, right? You see teams want to take that high ground control. It doesn't really matter, like, it doesn't really benefit anybody here, right? Yeah, you can kind of play from the low ground, so they can kind of take the fight to SSG right away.
And by percentage, this is Nightmare's best map type, so feeling good, of course, by putting a strong foot forward at the start of a first to two series, excuse me. And big ultimates to play with. I think that is obvious right now, and that's what it's all about with this composition, folks. Big 5 ults fight here for Nightmare.
So you take high ground here, right? It kind of like buys you some space.
Cage fight going to come in now. It's going to be Seeker dancing amongst the bodies. Spacestation going pretty low here, and the cardiac overdrive's not enough to keep them healthy. And they pop everything except for that Death Blossom. And that might be what hurts them in the end, because Nightmare bowl them over.
Yeah, and they're going to get a stagger here on the Funny Astro as well. It's brutal.
It's so brutal.
They get the kill. I mean, that is the worst case scenario there for SSG. You're going to get maybe one fighter. It's going to be like a touch. It's not really going to be a great situation.
Can Backbone salvage this with this sole ultimate on the field right now? They have to know he's here. Yep, he's been traced and he's forced to back up, try and get to the rest of his team and get some healing in the front line. It's time to throw down as Hardy comes in with a charge, and there's that Death Blossom. It's going to be enough. Infected and Zera crumble under that level of pressure in the front line. The Seekers are the last left standing. Spacestation stay alive in the map, but only just.
Yeah, it's a stomp from Hardy, and then they take advantage of it right away, right? They get rid of Infected. Infected hits the ground, not able to, pop anything to keep himself up, right? No cardiac overdrive, being able to charge away, just dodge some of that damage. That is huge. Fight win, a absolute must win there for SSG. Still a lot to do to battle back into this one, though.
99 plays 18 now. Quick TP to the high ground for Seeker. He manages to wrap around. It's a lot of damage getting put down on the Juno. He gets what he came for, but it ends up being a 2-for-2. Nightmare, though, still have both their supports in play and Infected to work with. It's going to be really hard to bring this Malga down with both supports looking straight at him. And here's the charge. Backbone has to get out with the Raid Walk, and Hardy tries to reposition with a shoulder charge of his own. This allows Nightmare to flip the point back, and Spacestation quickly trying to get their truth back in position. But Hardy again can't take too much more damage again. He's going to back away in an orbital right now, coming in from Nightmare at 99%. They're not done. Backbone has the Wraith Walk away. Psycho desperately trying to get a touch on the point, but he's going to be forced off to the side, and the Death Blossom gets dropped in. Landon is able to get away back behind his shield now. A cage fight thrown in by Nightmare. 99 plays 33, and Funny Astro's the last one standing. NA makes the statement here in this transatlantic battle, taking our first map.
A really strong performance there from Nightmare, playing that brawl style that SSG is known for. They match it. And I think just tremendous coordination there between Infected and Seeker. That Malga and the Reaper constantly making plays with each other.
Really impressive stuff from Nightmare, but we knew that they were capable of taking it to some of the best teams. They did it to Toronto, but in a vastly different meta. A meta where Seeker's able to play hit scan, Zera's on the Genji. It was a very different look for this team, and they've adapted and adjusted to this style perfectly. A meta that, God forbid, might actually suit their playstyle even better, because if we're talking about hive minds, Nightmare are showing they're up there when it comes to the macro gameplay.
Yeah, we know they can play other stuff, right? We've seen Infected play like the ball throughout the year. Like you mentioned, Zera's been like a standout player, right? One of like the biggest new names on the scene, I feel like, in NA. He's been tremendous. We know what Seeker can do on the hit scan. I think it's probably a little bit of the shock to SSG that Nightmare comes out and plays this strong early on, but I think now that SSG has map selection, right, we can see their strengths, them start to lean in.
But again, these two teams like to play the same comps map. So it becomes a little bit more complicated to pick a map that gives you a distinct edge. You just want to go to a map that you feel like you generally had better performances on. Maybe you have some stronger rotations, or your underlying strat outside of just how to play the Malga comp is a little stronger.
Yeah, I believe that's an SSG map pick, right? It's a 4C versus 5, so that's their map pick there on Oasis. So they'll actually get to end up picking another map here. But like I mentioned, I thought the coordination, being able to use that stomp, right into the, whether it's like a Death Blossom or the TP into the Reaper and just some kills. And then also you kind of notice in that last fight, right? It's a cardiac overdrive popped really early by Infected, right? He forces it out. Hardy, and then the orbital ray just to follow right up, right? Kind of comboing those two.
Hardy, at that point, he's using it just to stay alive.
Yeah.
This fight here, Seeker actually gets that Death Blossom off, so even with the orbital ray, the rally, and the cardiac overdrive healing, Seeker is in the perfect position because of the cage fights to guarantee maximum value and also be unkillable because of Infected's cardiac overdrive. So you just have a huge damage disadvantage in that fight. Something the Backbone can't match because he doesn't get his ultimate off, or he doesn't get it in time. Either way, he comes into the next fight with an ultimate and nothing really to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really able to make anything happen with that ult. We take a look at some of the stats, and
what
heavily favors Nightmare here in a mirror match? Right? That's kind of the crazy thing about it. The second point was pretty one-sided all throughout. So you kind of see these stats are probably inflated by that point,
sure.
But match one, the first point was quite close. I imagine the stats, if you just isolated it from that, look way better.
Yeah, a ton of value though, especially in the damage department. And I mean, you're talking about Seeker and Zera here, who are two players that are pretty feeling pretty comfortable in those roles. And the duplication impact, right? Being able to, bring another, God forbid, Reaper or Malga into play. We've seen Brig even duped at some point.
We haven't gotten the quad Malga yet. I'm waiting for just the 4 cage fights.
It has been spoken of. Yeah, it is. I've heard it in hushed whispers in the cold hallways that this is a phenomenon that has occurred here, but it wasn't required there for Nightmare. No. I just want to point out, they shut that last round out. That was 100-0 here. So Shambali Monastery is going to be the pick here for SSG. I guess it's probably the kind of map that even outside of compositionally, you feel like you have good rotations or a good understanding of how to play, especially on the defense side, to your strengths, then you probably feel good about it. But these are not two teams with different styles, so you really have to hope you've got something special here on Shambali.
Yeah, and it's probably two teams that are totally fine not deviating off of this, right? They're probably totally fine going down, just running this mirror into each other and see who can perform it the best. SSG, these are the types of play styles that they thrive in, right? That they want to play. So if they can play it, you're gonna take your chance.
Johnny T's on the desk as well. SSG have been known to play the Symmetra, even in these Malga compositions, because you don't have a shield, but the cardiac overdrive with your damage ramp means that you're very hard to kill as well.
The desk teased a lot. I still don't know who predicted what. There's
Yeah, so it was SSG. Jake was Nightmare, I think, in the end. But again, this is the kind of map where that TP on the attack side can really catch people off guard. Because you've got to play into that high ground at first. You either force the Malga comp to drop down, or if you can do some sim shenanigans, that would be pretty sick. In past metas, we've even seen Zenyatta picked up on this map, and the topography allows for a couple of those longer range picks here against slower comps. I don't think that's an option here, but just keep an eye out for any of that kind of shenanigans. SSG on the attack side first here, so hovering our standard Malga comp.
Yeah, it'll be a Nightmare picking it up on defense. Nothing too surprising here. Did not expect them. I think if you're Nightmare, right, you probably don't make any changes until you see something drastically different from the SSG side, and it beats you, right? Otherwise, but I also think SSG is totally fine just playing the mirror, right? I think this is something that they've trained, that they're really good at. One of the best in the West. Like Johnny mentioned, probably the best in the West is playing the Brawl.
All right, let's see if that Hive Mind can rear its head once more now. Space Station on that attack side to start with. No comp changes here. This is what they've been working on for weeks in the lead up to this tournament. Already, Seeker goes in pretty deep. It looks like Nightmare will take the fight right out the front. It's going to be a trade here, so an early attempt at spawn camp just to buy some valuable seconds.
It's a double there from Psycho, as it's making it 3 there for Psycho. 2 with the sticky bombs, and then 1 with the focusing beam, finishing a player off as Nightmare tries to push up, get that spawn camp to get 1 early kill, but SSG gets control of the payload, gets a move.
Psycho a player to watch here in this series, I think, in general. And again, I think Johnny pointed it out. He also jumped into the driver's seat in that Stage 2 final and just kind of took the game over. Someone who was a Tracer player on teams in the past, in the earlier days of Overwatch, never really had the chance to take the spotlight, but man, much has changed. He has really developed into an all-star player. Here again, we see Nightmare want to push up and take a fight. It's Infected in first with the charge. Hardy tried to disengage briefly, but Seeker is getting right in there. Wants to pressure Backbone and a brief wait. Wraith Walk drop out, and there they collapse on the Malga. I don't know what that was from Seeker. Little TP on the body.
Big TP there.
Is that the evolution of the attack crouch?
Well, so I really love that the way that Nightmare plays this, right? Seeker goes in with a TP. It forces Space Station to kind of turn, obviously, to respect the Reaper, but the Stomp comes in at the same time, and then Zero over the top as well, right? So your focus is in 2 completely different directions. You can't ignore the Malga Stomp with everybody else following it up, but you can't exactly just keep your back to the Reaper and be totally fine.
And it can be hard to tell the difference between a good Malga Stomp and a not so great one here. So you want to look at, again, at the indicators for the stars and see who's actually affected by them. But landing a big stomp almost always puts you in a great position. Here comes a cage fight straight away. Orbital Ray going to be thrown in here by Nightmare. Funny Astro lets his go as well. And there it is, Backbone with a Death Blossom. He would have loved to see one like that on the previous map, but he's made up for it now.
Yes, I think Landon just deals with Seeker as soon as he's popping his Death Blossom, so that never pops. Backbone gets huge value with his inside of the cage fight. Space Station, that was really nicely played, right? Nightmare battles around the corner. They try and catch them by surprise, coming around aggressive with the Orbital Ray, and SSG fights right back.
Straight away running for Landon. He knows there's going to be some reprisal here for Nightmare. They have a cage fight of their own, and they get Landon straight away. CJ, though, picked up by Psycho. Nicely done to find the priority target. But that's it for Ultimates. Admiral now, his rally has run out. Spacestation have put themselves in a bit of a weird spot. They haven't capped this checkpoint yet.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be able to like back out though towards this back staircase. We'll see how they decide to play it because they do have players coming off a spawn here too.
It's a bit of a choke to come down from. A little awkward. They're going to make their way through this archway. Zerial note there, duped to Malga.
It's a huge fight though. It kind of resets the ultimate economy across the board.
We've got no ultimates on the board now. I think the Echo focusing beam is going to be really important in this fight as a result of that. Psycho backs up here, plays a little bit safer, but the damage coming in on Infected. Focusing beam stop. Good one from Hardy. That is going to affect the enemy Malga. An Admiral Infected drop down. That's exactly what Space Station were looking for in a no ults fight. It's no holds barred throwdown by Space Station.
Yeah, they look much better dealing with some of the aggression that Nightmare is pumping out. Like that time, landing really low, but you have a lot of help there with Funny Astro and Psycho over the top, right? Putting down some serious damage, focusing beam, finishing some players off. He is starting to heat up on the Echo. Where so with SSG, we talk a lot about their play style, their coordination. Like you mentioned before, the damage dealers this year have been tremendous. I mean, you know, Backbone, Psycho and Sparker have just been really great.
I mean, Backbone may look like a high skill expression hero whenever he was on it. His long-range right clicks were crazy, and they just won fights instantly. Seeker's on the off angle here. Psycho dupes a Reaper. They're going to try and ignore him for the time being, and here comes that Orbital Ray. Force a Wraith Walk out of the duped Reaper, but Psycho's going to come out with a Death Blossom of his own here. Hardy throws the cage down. Here's that free Blossom from Psycho, and he makes it work. Well, this Nightmare stopped to smell the roses.
Just an absolute bloodbath there as SSG get that cage fight, you get the Death Blossom inside of it, and Nightmare, you kind of open things up with your Death Blossom. Nothing you can really do kind of counteract that. Maybe Nightmare is able to make a final stand here, though. You have Infected with the cage fight and kind of like round the corner fast, maybe drop it.
The stomp, though, is just for mobility for Infected. He can't actually get a stun off of it. They do at least have a cage fight. Here's Backbone, though. He's in the middle of it. Stunned up, though. Nice break bash there from Admiral to interrupt the Reaper ultimate. Now he wants to push up. Another stun. Backbone forced away once more. Torpedoes coming in. Space Station now starting to crumble a little bit. The healing from CJ. Very, very good at keeping Nightmare hailing Hardy, and Hardy's not going to be allowed to walk away. He pops a cardiac overdrive of his own, but he knows he's just staggering himself out now. 1 minute 34 on the clock. Space Station again are stopped short.
Yeah, it's just kind of these last-ditch efforts here from Nightmare, right? It kind of gave them an extra fight or two on that first checkpoint. Now they get another fight win as SSG approaches that second checkpoint. So going to give themselves another opportunity. It's also like, it takes a while, right, to kind of like traverse this, like to get all the way back.
It's a big map.
Yeah, it's a big map.
You need a bloody Sherpa to get out of spawn.
To rotate all the way around.
So what is the plan for Space Station? Again, the Echo play is important. Can they burst down a crucial target? CJ's going to have that first orbital ray. Nightmare might want to take a fight here.
Well, do you consider just waiting here for orbital ray?
You absolutely should.
You have to, right?
Nightmare let them do this as well. Which might come back to bite them, but Funny Astro will have that.
Well, Nightmare's been trying to, like, when they see SSG pull up, get really aggressive, go around the corner, lead with the orbital ray. Yeah,
it's time to go. Orbital ray thrown out on a nice angle there from CJ. The Torpedo's going to be able to keep Infected healthy, and Space Station just try and disengage entirely. Nightmare have to allow this to happen. They cannot overextend into this comp.
This is great, though, for SSG. They're starting to get a little bit better of a read on how Nightmare wants to kick off these fights.
Yeah, the macro is good. A great disengage allows them to come back in with a stun, and Seeker's already taken down. The orbital ray here seems honestly superfluous. Has Space Station played that one to perfection?
You imagine with SSG, they've now gotten a clear read on, like, okay, when they have orbital ray, they're trying to engage with it. They're trying to fight with it. So that time they know the orbital ray is about there because Funny Astro's got his after they kind of bumped line throughout the entire game. And when they see that orbital ray come down, they just hightail it out. You come back with such an advantage.
And this push and pull is a big part of this Malga meta. It's a huge factor of it. If you can force these ultimates out of your opponents for cheap, you are going to be in a great spot. Oh, Funny Astro taken down early though. That's the volatility of the Echo pick in the mix. They've got no Juno to work with. Have a cage fight, and that seems like it was enough for Space Station. Landon able to hold onto his rally here, and that's big value for SSG.
Yeah, I think if you're Nightmare, you're just trying to stop a map completion, right? At this point, below a minute on the clock, you need like 2 more fights maybe to get it to that position, so you hold on to some of these key ultimates here towards the end. This is where we see a lot of teams kind of like stall out and around this corner of the map.
Hardy, just a chill, cool guy, sat on the payload. Getting Space Station within striking distance of a map completion here. But Nightmare have all the tools here to stop them. Okay, Reaper Dupe, there's going to be another cage fight. Hardy's caught inside of it. Oh, as was Backbone, and Seeker smashed him instantly. Admiral does not pop the rally. holding onto it there just in case it's needed, and it will be, because SSG capitulate very early and Landon popped his rally.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have that here for the end, but you're going to end up with this Death Blossom that Backbone's been able to use, but it's really been in combination with the cage fight, so...
Admiral has done. It's
yeah,
interruptible, man.
And Psycho now going over to the Tracer, probably just to get a touch.
All right, up comes Backbone, has the Wraith Walk here, so this is very telegraphed, folks. Back for Admiral. Okay, gets the stun off, interrupts the Reaper ultimate. That's the antidote to chaos here for Nightmare in this fight. And now Space Station going to be forced back. Backbone low, clinging alive, and Hardy's not faring much better. Admiral, the raid boss here, just whipping him about. And that will be a stop here by Nightmare just before Space Station finish the map.
It's tremendous. They kept Backbone alive for as long as they did there, right? He has to use basically all his cooldowns to get to the payload, keep it going. It's
very obvious what he's trying to do.
He makes it back, but SSG, they do get a very long distance there on the payload. Going to be tough for Nightmare to get that, and I think we'll see if Nightmare decides to change up how they've been kind of playing around some of these ultimates, because I think SSG is starting to catch up.
Yeah. On a couple of occasions, right, we see these great disengages from Space Station, which is harder to do than with Lucio. At Lucio, you can just speed boost here. You've got to throw a hyper ring down to give you the speed to get away quite often, or you need to use a Malga charge to get away. So it's not always as clean a getaway as it was in previous metas.
Everybody really has kind of like their own mobility here, right? Like you know, whether it's a charge away, whether it's with a Wraith Walk away.
But if you get caught, you've used, like, a lot of those abilities are really important to have in fights. So if you're trying to disengage with them and still get caught, you are guaranteed to lose. That's the risk of turning tail in these comps.
Yes and no, because you're going to have to disengage and use some of those abilities, but there's going to be a little bit of a lapse, right? So you have an opportunity to at least get a few of them back. You're definitely going to have a lot of them during the fight. Admiral maybe hovering an Ana here at the start. We'll see. Probably maybe if you do, it's just like a bio-nade if you think they're close, or just put a shot in. So,
I mean, on the attack side, I guess it's fine, but you're very diveable.
Yeah, maybe you're just you're never going to play that. You're going to see him just play the rig right off the rip. So,
stop the payload.
Admiral looked very, very good in the Brig matchup as well, holding onto some of those rallies with great timing. And the shield bash to stop Backbone when he was looking for the Hail Mary. Death Blossom was big too. Zero wants to try and take an Echo fight here, and there it is. Great engagement for Nightmare. Once more, just steamroll the front line, ignore Hardy for the most part, who is still causing a bit of trouble, but he will be brought down.
Yeah, really early cleanup here from Nightmare. I like the idea from Zero there. Like, instead of just, you don't necessarily need his damage per se. Like, just, Psycho's been such a nuisance up in the sky, right? Force him to actually look at you, fight you, rather than just kind of kill the rest of
Blow
your
your tank up.
Yeah.
Zero's doing very well if he can garner the attention of Psycho.
Because really, a lot of the fights that SSG has won is, whether it's like a Death Blossom cage fight or off the back of Psycho coming up
with
some
an Echo pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, disengage here for Nightmare. They're going to be able to get away behind the wall. Didn't like what they saw there. In they come once more. Zero also with that flight cooldown, looking to pressure Backbone. TP's backward here, so now Space Station with a bit of push and pull of their own.
Giving them some space here, though. Nightmare should be able to make it to this first corner with an orbital ray.
Yeah, big ult lead, and CJ's going to pop it straight away. They know they're ahead, but look, they charge ahead of the orbital ray, so they don't get much value out of it, but Space Station tried to disengage. They lose Psycho, though.
But getting first point here with a large time bank, I mean, you'll take that, right? You'll figure it out.
This is what I'm saying. If the disengage doesn't work, you cannot win the fight.
Yes, they don't really kind of go all the way back, right? They're going to stand and fight for a little bit. Zero looking for some more kills, but to just win that off the back of the orbital ray, sure, you didn't really get a ton of value out of it, but you still feel pretty good. I mean, you're going to gain a ton of payload progress with a lot of time in the bank.
It does mean that you are, of course, going into a space station with orbital ray here, but
yeah, but you're going to have like what, 4 ultimates as well? I mean, it's not like they got enough.
Can they win with an ult disadvantage? Here comes Infected with the stun. Found Landon, forced him off the map here, but there's Backbone. He gets in there with a big old Death Blossom. And a bit of an awkward engagement there from Nightmare, as Infected is mostly ignored.
Yeah, I mean, Zero was dead instantly as soon as that fight kind of kicked off. But that's what, 4 ultimates used there for SSG. You just ended up, using Death Blossom there for Nightmare, so that kind of sends the advantage back in their favor. And with such a large time bank, yeah, that's a perfect spot to be sat at.
I think they lose a minute to force out 4 of those big ultimates. Backbone trying to start a fight up early, but here comes a cage fight. Thrown down, Zera also duping the Malga. There's a lot of big bodies in the field right now, and Space Stations are hitting the floor. What a one-sided fight, and Nightmare walking to the next fight with 2 support ults.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're talking about. That trade for Nightmare is way better for them in terms of like where you are, because you're also like playing against the clock in some aspects, right? So way better position for where they are. SSG kind of has to take that early fight, right? Maybe you're able to win it, but if you don't take it back here, right, it gives you 1 fight. So you essentially get an extra fight about taking that one early.
Psycho might dupe a Reaper again. Here's an orbital right now. It's in a good spot for Nightmare to make use of, and yet we have a dupe Reaper. That was cut short. Psycho now is under a lot of pressure, and here come Nightmare. They're going to get another checkpoint, a time extension. Bro, they have so much to work with here.
Yeah, I mean, 4 minutes and 30 on the clock and counting. And, I mean, they don't even have to get the entire map, right? You got to get it around that corner, but still, it's an eternity of time to play with.
This is huge. Nightmare coming in as the 5th seed here. Space Station, the best team out of EMEA in that Stage 4 main event. This will be wild to see them win here. And they're so close. Rally is the play here for Admiral. Seeker does have a Blossom. And he wants to push up. It's going to be a charge in from... Oh, nicely done, Sarah! How does he get caught inside that? Ah, yes, shoulder charge, headshot. Hate to see that. Hardy going to be forced back now. The Death Blossom's a problem. He actually charges into it. He doesn't interrupt it. Sarah helping out as Seeker looks to throw down, but Backbone clips a beautiful headshot up close. This is messy.
The longer these fights go, though, right here is even better for Nightmare, right? It just puts a little bit of pressure on SSG to maybe have to pop some of these ults when it's not exactly necessary, as Infected's going to get them in position where this payload's going to be at that final corner.
He's going to have to back off of it here as Seeker's still coming in.
If you're Nightmare, you take a fight, try and get them to use cage by one of these ultimates. You still got 330,
so
right? You take a fight, yeah.
Psycho, oh my god, it's got hit pretty hard there by the sticky bombs, and there's a double orbital ray fight. It's going to be a foul! My goodness, that is just wrong. That's a cheeky little 4K for Backbone.
So I think Nightmare, like, that's the right approach. Take that early fight. I don't think you need to invest that heavy, though, right? I mean, you ended up using your cage fight and your orbital ray. You think maybe you could have, like, cage fight, and then that, like, kind of gets them to react in some aspect, and then hold on, like, just kind of, like, have them wipe the floor with you. Let's see.
Show me this again. Love that.
Filthy word.
All right. Nightmare still posturing here. See, Zera's got up behind them, trying to get rid of Landon. They're pressuring down the brink. They've got the rally out of Landon. But what now? Psycho with a Duke Reaper there, looking to try and get some damage on Infected. Maybe build a free Death Blossom. He's getting awful close, but stunned up. Knocked out a Duke. Here comes a Duke. Malga charges. Zera gets in there, but he's also going to be knocked out of his own Duke. Stick is close to a Death Blossom. He might have the occasion to use it now. On the card, press Q could be the play. In we go, folks. Okay, Backbone's able to avoid most of it. Good interrupt there. Great stop from Hardy to shut the Reaper down. And now Nightmare are looking worse for wear. Forced off to the side. Charge comes in, Infected finds the stomp here, but a cleanup crew has arrived. And EMEA's finest holdout.
SSG win another clutch fight, man, as I feel like Nightmare, you had that opportunity, right, to just take an early fight, get them to waste some ultimates, and you just kind of blew everything. Now you've let them back in the game.
This is the team that in the main event in Stage 4 also just slipped to the final hurdle against the Toronto Defiant. Nightmare in the past have had a tendency just to seize up with victory so close within their grasp.
You have an opportunity here again, right? Force out one of these ultimates. You know, you get a little bit scary because of the clock, but right there, nice focusing beam that's going to force the Duke here.
Disengage. I don't think they can get out. Can they get Infected away from this? He's charging backwards, and Nightmare do find a way to escape. All 5 players with a full disengage coming back in now.
You get something out though, right? You put a lot of pressure from Zero on a Psycho. You get a focusing beam, some damage.
Got the Duke.
Scared to die. You got the dupe out, right? No, not the most impactful. You'd have loved Orbital Ray or Cage Fight, but still something.
Cage Fight, who's they caught? Looks like Hardy might be inside of it. CJ's going to get pulled in himself, and it's another Backbone Death Blossom. Nightmare can't do a thing about it.
Right, but they hold on to both support ults. So Infected going to jump off the side. This is what they could have done much earlier in the round, right? Would have felt much better about doing it with 3 minutes on the clock than now under a minute. But you're going to have double support ult plus the Duke, right? So you feel like you're in a pretty good spot with no ultimates on the other side. SSG, they push up. Maybe they see if they can get a pick here, but back out.
This is Nightmare's last and best chance to win the series right here. In goes Zera, looks for some pressure on Hardy, takes him to half. Landon now does have that rally online, though it's going to be Admiral popping his first. Here's the orbital ray comes in, Hardy is down. The biggest bastion on Space Station has been removed. Landon's forced to trend backwards now with the rally in play just to keep his team alive, and Backbone is stalling out the card. Wraithwalk is effective. Zera has to go for a dupe with the Reaper now, but Psycho's down to the Death Blossom, and in come Nightmare. They're riding this one home. Desperately, Funny Astro keeps them in the game as Hardy's able to get some stall, but it's too little, too late. And NA's number 2 hits the haymaker. Finds a second round knockout, and it will be Nightmare advancing to our next round.
So you see how hyped the Nightmare boys are for taking that one. Oh, got a little.
Okay.
The Soon dance there. Everybody just extremely happy over on the side of Nightmare, and as they should be, right? That's a fantastic team over on the side of SSG. Tremendous at playing that style, especially those brawl, those Maga styles, and Nightmare took it right to him.
This is an SSG that come into this tournament with the expectation of being the best Western team, right? The best team outside of our, Asian delegates that could really make an impact in this tournament, and they have fallen already. It's a double elimination tournament. They get a run through the lower bracket. I'd definitely be afraid to be, thrown down into a matchup against that SSG team, man.
But it's also a scary situation, right? Because you play again today, right? The losers end up playing again today, right? So you have to somehow just kind of recover after this, especially like losing 2-0, right? You probably expected, like, if you did lose, it was going to be really close down on the third map. You lose 2-0, now you got to kind of like sit back, okay, who do we play next? So like a quick prep time and then turn around. It's a tough situation to be in.
And how do you diagnose something like this if you're SSG? What are you saying to them? Because it seemed like it was the little things, the little macro decisions, whether they can disengage effectively or not. I mean, Backbone is like getting 4Ks every other fight, and it's still not enough to stop these guys.
Yeah, I think it's just minor things. I think Nightmare had a really good idea of like when they wanted to engage. I think SSG took a little bit too long to maybe kind of like figure that out in terms of like how they were kind of playing against that. And I think SSG will be fine. I think, and still, if you're them, there's no reason to panic, right? You still have another game. You're still really good at this meta, at these styles of play. There's no reason to kind of scrap it all because you lose here to Nightmare.
Still a great result, potentially an upset. I'm going to call it one as Nightmare take the win over SSG. Let's head down to the stage here from Golden Boy with Infected.
Thank you so much, fellas. Guys, give it up for Nightmare. Hard-fought battle. Look, I know they're in enemy territory, but you got to give us some love. Infected, congratulations, man. First question here is, we were hearing a lot in the commentary talking about the hive mind of Nightmare, the macro game being so strong. What do you attest that to, especially as the tank player for the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think our macro is really well in this comp too. Everybody knows how like how their ults work and like how we should use ults in certain fights. I think especially this match too, we showed that we just had better ult, just ult value throughout the whole entire series.
It definitely was apparent. The ult management was incredible. You guys were definitely on par with that. But coming into this, you talked a little trash, said you were gonna, put one of the EMEA teams in their place here. You managed to do so. You get a big win against Space Station Gaming. So how does it feel to be able to get a win like that here on their home soil?
I think that's probably going to be the best win I ever feel. Maybe like grand finals, but I really wanted to show that NA is better than EMEA. And I think we proved it here.
Ooh, all right. Hey. Proof is in the results, baby. All right, Infected, it was a pleasure, my man. Congratulations. But for now, though, let's actually go ahead and check out the team comms in a winning moment for Nightmare on that last one.
Reaper.
Pocket me after. Yeah.
Reaper one, Reaper.
Echo,
break.
Nice!
Fucking good.
Celebration!
Yeah. No. What?
Those comms as in sync as the gameplay. Welcome back everyone to the desk. So we're here joined by Jake and by Johnny, and thank goodness I predicted Nightmare for this one.
So smart.
Sorry,
That's
Jay.
smart,
Damn,
actually.
that's tough.
Yeah, it's really tough. No, I mean,
Unlucky.
as good as SSG are at this style, I feel like this is how Nightmare distinguished themselves in NA with that hive mind, right? With that incredible coordination. That's how they made it so competitive against Toronto in the Stage 4 final. And I mean, I think this is proof is in the pudding about the regional differences right now. NA on top, at least in this meta.
Listen, this is just one match. There will be more to come. Okay, let's not
This
overreact.
is your standard bearer, guys.
I do not want to take anything away from Nightmare. They played so well. And it's something that we kind of talked about as well heading into this, right? The aggression that, see, I'm just saying, definitely not what I predicted, but I'll take the credit regardless. Thank you very much, production. We love to fly those once again, especially when I look like a genius. No, but yeah, credit goes to Jake. He actually had them on the board for this one. Johnny, as I just tried to allude to, this is something we talked about, the aggression, and that could be a real boon for that Nightmare roster. And they put so much pressure on that backline of SSG.
Yeah, I think you saw early on Oasis how much pressure they really put on the backline, and they forced SSG to kind of move and disengage from all these aggressive overrun plays. Here is Zero, of course, with a duplicate. But also you saw in general, on this round, for example, Landon, you know, they like to aggress onto the Brigitte early, and especially punishing Hadi. When Hadi does the overrun, when Hadi tries to engage, sometimes you saw Infected. He's going to trade that aggression and instead get into the backline, and with Nightmare synergy, like you talked about, Jake, they can follow up on Infected, and they're so solid in that regard. Another fight here, especially on Shambali Monastery as well. We saw, once again, they're going for Landon. They're hunting this backline of SSG. And so, Nightmare, they had a clear game plan. They like to go aggressive. We talked about it going into this matchup, and they know how to play this matchup really well. But also, I mean, the ability usage and ultimate usage, Jake, was just spectacular from Nightmare.
Yeah, I think in general, they knew when they had ultimate leads and would continue to force the advantage, push the tempo at an extremely high pace, which is critical in this comp, right? When you have an ulti lead, it's probably only going to last just a few seconds before the other team catches up. That's your window to make plays, and Nightmare were able to really work with that, run it in strides. I feel like we got to compliment Zira and Seeker, though. The DPS for Nightmare, they really were the tip of the spear, not afraid to take risks with their lives, and trust that the supports, the tanks, will follow them up, will make the plays. Yes, there were these massive team-wide moments where SSG just cleans house, but oftentimes I feel they were over-ulting to achieve these teamfight wins, right? Sometimes they're expending 4 ults to 1 in a teamfight. I saw that at least once on Shambali, which is really not something you can allow to happen. It's effectively a mistake from SSG to let that kind of a terrible ult trade happen, but well done by Nightmare to pressure it.
Yeah, and we see, of course, our MVP here. You just mentioned him as well. Absolutely phenomenal performance across the board.
Yeah, I mean, Zero's a rookie as well. Starting with this year, of course, you know, limited experience in the professional scene here in Overwatch, and now comes in this year and was spectacular. It's a rookie we talked about going into the year, someone with high potential that could really flourish in North America. And I think this is a perfect team for Zero to really establish himself. And we talked with Zero actually going into the tournament, Jake. This is a player with high ambitions, really want to become one of the best players in the world, and I think Zero's off to a great start here. Going into this tournament, I talked about Nightmare as a dark horse, you know, for this tournament. I think they've had really good accomplishments in North America. They've taken it to close to Toronto Defiant a couple of times. And I really do think that as we look as this tournament progresses, yes, you're going to run into your Team Falcons. You're going to run into Crazy Raccoon. That is inevitable. But I really do think when you compare North America and EMEA, Nightmare could establish themselves as one of the better teams. Potentially, you know, they took down SSG already, could take down ENCE and, you know, challenge Toronto Defiant once more.
And I do love the trajectory we've seen in general of that region. At the very beginning of OWCS in the NA region, it was just Toronto on top and everyone somewhere down there. It didn't look competitive at all. But as the season progressed, the other teams really stepped it up. Changes were made to the rosters, but I feel like they really found their groove, and I love to see it now on display on this very stage in our international competition. Let's take a look at the bracket to see where we are at right now. We have, of course, played 3 matches now in our upper bracket quarterfinals. We have seen teams moving on, but now we also already know matchups which are on the brink of elimination. Twisted Minds and SSG, at least they're familiar with each other.
You know, that'll be a really interesting matchup to see because I think Twisted Mind's slow and methodical style, putting a ton of poke pressure on, could be a challenge for SSG where their aggression felt a little bit weaker, right, in that last series. And that's what you have to do to shut down some people like Quartz and Lambda. You got to, like, dive in, force quick fights. And that wasn't SSG's strength in this series. Maybe they can learn the lessons and be able to apply that going forward. But I am curious to see Twisted Minds, how they do going on in the tournament with what seems like an unconventional style right now.
Yeah, I think you saw as well that Falcons, they adapted quite seamlessly to what Twisted Minds had in mind. But then you consider SSG, and I mean, they like to rotate quite frequently between Backbone, Psycho, and now Sparker found himself on the bench. Sparker would be the hit scan player that would put a lot of pressure on a player like Lambda on that far, of course. How would Backbone react to that situation if we're going to see more of Backbone in that lineup? It's going to be a really interesting matchup in the lower bracket later today that is going to eliminate one of those 2 teams.
That's exactly it. We don't have to wait long to see who's going to make it through the lower bracket and who will be sent home already on day number 1. For now, we're heading into a very quick break. And when we come back, we're going to bring you the last quarterfinal match in our upper bracket. Stick around.